Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to a special episode of Transfer Market Metrics on a Friday night. So whether you're enjoying your first beer, whether you are traveling home on your commute and listening to this, hello to wherever you are, and we have got a jam-packed schedule for you tonight. And as ever, I'm the host, but I'm not really the star of the show. I'm not really the man with the metrics. I'm not the doctor from Del Monte, as they say. That is Bart's with me tonight, here to run all the metrics and analyse all the starts. But Bart's, now they're tricking people a bit because you've got a brick wall, but let's just be clear. You are in sunnier climates right now, aren't you? Let's not lie to people.
Yeah, I am. I shared a picture of you, my after work schedule today, but I thought I better not put it up on as a banner so people don't get too annoyed. But yes, I am on a tropical island at the moment.
Yeah. So whilst we are freezing ass cold, like if you are where I'm in Edinburgh, we have still got Bart's to run us through it all. So what have we got for you, ladies and gents? A jam-packed show. We'll run the numbers on Tchouameni and Zubimendi, two midfielders that have been linked heavily with Liverpool. Maybe is it manifestation? Maybe is it still there? We'll talk about that as well. We'll run the numbers on Ryan Gravenberch because he's been sensational this season. Do the stats bear that out? Can he keep it going? We'll talk about that as well. And we'll also run some details on left backs as well because there's been a few linked with a move to Anfield. There's a few existing ones who've got question marks around them as well, people. So we will run that all for you. Top of the tree, Barts, Tchouameni and Zubimendi. So sure, you know this, people. There's been numerous links, hasn't there, with these two players. Zubimendi, that was the saga of last summer, wasn't it, realistically?
Sure.
So that came about. That was a nightmare if that got rejected. Tchouameni, and I know he is a favourite of yours, Barts, as well. So we'll have a look at the stats. And I suppose it's over to you. See, we want a stat preview, wagon wheel, which player, who's coming up first on the docket?
So I've got Tchouameni here. I mean, those who heard me before, I will try not to be biased, but I've always said for a while I thought this player was our number 6 that we should have signed, the one that got away that probably cost us midfield to fall apart as it did in the latter days of Fab and Hendo. Really, this was the player that's supposed to be brought in, but. Start as always with these kind of shows. We look at our F brief giving us our percentiles, and you can see here that the defensive side for Tchouameni is he's in the 90th percentile for aerials, clearances 89th, and interceptions 90. So defensively as well, if you see on the wagon wheel here, he's in the high chances compared to other midfielders. Pass completion. He's playing for Real Madrid, right? And as we always say, you've got to mitigate a little bit. They do have a lot of the ball, so he's expected to be able to pass the ball. And actually, he's in 97% of pass completion, and he attempts 85%. He's in 85% for his passes attempted. But I mean, doesn't carry the ball, so that means he doesn't dribble with it in Arsenal. So he's just a passer. And the other thing to note is that his progressive part he's only in the 62nd percentile. So what that generally would mean that his passes are safe and they're not looking to miss a line out. So one of the beautiful things about having Mac at the moment playing next to Grav is that Mac gives you that ability to break the lines with his passing. Tchouameni doesn't necessarily profile with that. And typically, if you look at the top here with these measures, his attack, like he's got non-penalty goals and he's in non-penalty XG and things like that. He's in the lower percentiles. So he's not one that's going to add a goal threat to your ability. Now, the good thing about what we can do down the bottom here is we can actually overlay quickly a comparison with some of our players. We'll do that, or I might do it on this one. But so generally Tchouameni more of a defensive player, okay? If I go through my specialist stats pack with him, as you can see here, I've run the usual things that guys will be used to, what we do with UP.
Yeah.
The good thing about it this year, which we previewed in the summer, is off-ball EPV. So what does he defensively operate for Real Madrid? And if we look here for Tchouameni, he of the EPV he was facing, and this was a game I've picked out in the league, and he played DM, not centre back, because that's a key aspect to play for Real Madrid's play, not centre half. He won 100% of his EPV. If you look at the areas in which he was defending, he's very, very strong. If we change that to PPDA, which is a defensive action, so it's off-ball work as an event, so clearance, a tackle, aerial, those kind of things that we generally look at. Again, if we look at Real Madrid's play in the areas that he would be playing in, he does have 11% there of those amount, 8 and 2, so another 10%. So he takes up quite a lot of those areas, okay, for a defensively for Real Madrid. Typically, as I said, he's not the sharp in the attacking side of it, so not really much point in looking at that, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I think he is. If we were going to be honest with, we're just looking at where he is here. He's at top of highlighted him. So he's only just below 10% of Real Madrid's total possession for this particular game. So that's probably on average about right. If you look at where we were with F brief, so when he gets it, he plays it safe. His pass success rate 93%. Again, mirroring with that. Key pass and assist 0. EPV curated, he only curated 6% of the total EPV of the team. Now, you compare that what Grav's been doing, what Mac's been doing, where they've been in double figures, if not approaching the 20% of our team percentage, not of the entire amount of threat, but as a percentage of the teams. That gives you an indication of the slightly different role that Tchouameni is asked to do for Real Madrid. So, yeah, I mean, dual success here, interestingly, is not as high as he probably should be. But, yeah, I think on the F brief over the last 365 days, his error was a particularly strong point. So I wouldn't have many concerns with that. It might be a one-off in this game. So, yeah, Tchouameni for me has always been an interesting profile and probably one. We'll come on to looking at how he compares with Zubimendi as well. But for Tchouameni, a defensive 6, but he's good in possession of the ball. He's just not going to offer you that progressiveness to move through the thirds.
It's an interesting one, isn't it, Bart? Because there might be that element, and we've talked about this before, because people will say a number 6, and they'll say now, what's an Arne Slot 6, which we talk about with Gravenberch and the way he progresses it and those bits. But those destructive numbers and the ability just to pass well and simple and almost, you know the expression, I know Dan Kennett likes to use it. Sometimes you just need people to carry the piano, don't you, and do the donkey work and the stuff and let the other people play it, as it were. So I'm not going to lie, people, you probably saw, like me, there's a lot of stats to look at with this one. I tell you what, Bart, what we'll do is we'll have a bit of a look at Zubimendi again, where the ghost of Zubimendi is there, because people will know this and people will have seen it. It didn't happen, whether it's bloody PowerPoints, mountains, whatever swayed it in the end type of thing. And then this season, people have looked and gone, Sociedad really struggling. Look how that, and everyone's gone, maybe a little bit of like, you've lost out, Zubimendi. And sometimes you can judge on the ghost of things. And we are not avid La Liga watchers. We're not going to pretend at all. But what we can do is look and see, what do the stats say for Zubimendi this season?
So what we've got here is we've got the start again F3 profile for him, as we did originally in the summer. So this is last 365 days, so rolling. And you can see here, he's still good defensively. We're not suddenly switching from, an elite defensive 6 to someone who can't play 6. That's completely not the case. It's just it's a notch further down the grade. And if you look here, rather than being the 90th percentile for someone in defensive, he's in the 80th, right? And that's still a good place to be, right? That's still good.
Yeah.
But what he does offer you is he offers a bit more of a rounded defensive ability. But then the caveat to that is that the type of defensive work he's going to be asked to be doing for Real Sociedad is more varied than Madrid, where in Madrid they're looking to stop transitions on them. Real Sociedad, they'll be asking to defend in all manner of ways because they're not going to have a dominant amount of ball as Real Madrid would. Okay, that's just a caveat why some of these might appear higher than Tchouameni. If you look at his passing straight away, his pass completion and his passes attempted are actually lower than Tchouameni in terms of percentile, but the amount of those that are progressive is higher. So he's in the 69th percentile for a 6 for progressive. Now, in the recent poll we did against Villa, Grav was superb in terms of his progressive passing. So again, that gives you an indication that Zubimendi is not here in terms of a Tchouameni 6. He's more towards, I would say, the Grav profile. And I'll show you that in a minute as well. And attacking wise, as I said before in the summer as well, he does offer some sort of threat going forward in the defensive action. Now, what we can do, so that's his wagon wheel on his own. Yeah, strong defensive there, as you'd expect from a 6 for some of the bits. If you overlay Tchouameni's in the red. Yeah, so defensively, there's a bit of a difference there. But this is the area that I think people might be surprised about.
Yeah.
That is pass completion for Tchouameni is higher than Zubimendi. So there's a slight difference there. But defensive-wise, yeah, okay. Tchouameni is a little bit higher here and there, but the variance in the skill set of Zumbu is probably a little bit more. And then certainly touches Zubimendi dominates because I think he's more of a metronome type of 6 than a destructor, which is what Tchouameni does. If I go back to stats pack for Zubimendi, so again, looking at how he does EPV wise, in this game, he only won 91% of it. He faced more EPV as well. So whereas Tchouameni stopped 100%, Zubimendi only stopped. It's 90 still good, but I'm saying he faced a lot more. He only stopped 90% of it. If you look at the zones in which he was doing that, they are targeting that area, and he's done well to deal with that at that kind of rate, 90%. We look at our defensive actions for Real Sociedad in this game. He is about 18% of their defensive actions come in the zones that he would typically be playing in. So again, more of an onus in him going through that area. Okay, XG, and again, not a lot to be shouting home about. If we look at our pass networks, he's high. He's nearly 12% of the total possession for Real Sociedad, whereas Tchouameni was just below 7. So that's quite a big difference, to be fair. But again, that matches up with the profile of him being more of a metronome type 6 than a destructor. EPV, so he creates 10% of their EPV, whereas Tchouameni wasn't anywhere near 10%. So again, just that nodule on that scale. If you look at a scale of a 6, Tchouameni being here, Zubimendi is probably a little bit up here, and then you've probably got a very ball player in Thiago when he played the 6 up this side of it. So that's probably where I'd be. And just because I know you're going to ask me that question, if we use Ryan Gravenberg in the last 365 days, so down the bottom here, where Tchouameni and Zubimendi were very high, 80th and 90th percentile, Grab is not. He's in 27th and 41st percentile for aerials and clearances. He does, however, match up very well in terms of interception, blocks and tackles. Okay, which we have seen his ground duel rate has increased dramatically through the season. It's been one of the areas we've spoken about. The argument for that is it could be because he's out of position and he's got to make that tackle rather than knowing where he needs to be set data to get it out of the way. But let's be positive. That's an area he's stronger than the other two. Passing wise, I think he matches up very well to Zubimendi. He's probably more towards a Thiago end of the 6. He's better in a lot of the areas in 90th, 70th. They're good progressive carries. We know Ryan loves that turn, that spin turn and carry the ball. Yeah. The other two that we've just Zubimendi and Tchouameni don't do that. So they carry the ball, but they haven't got that progressive nature of it. Attacking wise, he's more Tchouameni than Zubimendi. So he's not good. So this is wagon wheels again, showing you a comparison with Zubimendi this time. So Zubimendi's in red. So again, as I've said, Zubimendi offers more of a goal threat. Of the three, he offers the most goal threat. But I would say Grab does pretty well. He's blue here in all the other metrics. The only other one where he's not doing as well, as I said, is the aerials and the dribbles, tackles. So that could show you two things. Now, if we overlay Tchouameni has more spikes in areas that Grab simply doesn't have. Yeah. So if you're looking for a pair, that wagon wheel comparison is probably more suited as a pair rather than that where there's a lot of overlap. And considering you're talking about investing 50, 60 million pounds, I personally invested in that wagon wheel being a difference than getting someone who does the same, unless you just want a like-for-like replacement to rotate with him. So, yeah, that's my assessment, I would say, of the 6s, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially because probably for me, like everyone else, it stood out. It's great looking at on the surface at Tchouameni and saying those passing numbers and the completions are great, but as you called out, the progression's very minimal. That's not his game. His game is disrupt, give it simple. That's what he's there to do. Ryan Gravenberch is interesting, as you say, has that uniqueness that probably the other two don't have in terms of everyone loves the body swerve, the progressiveness that gives as well. And also Zubimendi, the element of it, as you called out, when you look at those stats, it's interesting how it bears out. Probably that phrase that you stood out for me, the metronome, the ability just to keep it ticking in all those areas. And as you use that phrase, everything goes through him almost for Sociedad. So I like the way you phrase this, Bart, and I'll get you off the fence on this, just to be clear, and then we'll talk about what we've heard and a little bit of stuff for the transfer people as well. Is it for you Grav and Tchouameni on the basis that one would complement the other, i.e. one has the thing the others don't? Or is it Grav and Zubimendi in terms of Zubimendi could cover more and is maybe a slot 6 more in the progressive nature that we've talked about before?
I think there's an element of truth in both those statements. I can see why Slot wanted to sign Tchouameni in the summer, right? And I can see how he's tried to mould Grav to do that. But there are elements of Grav's game that is still missing. Whether he'll carry on with that, I'm not sure. What I'm saying now, though, is 6 months down the line, is actually Grav has come on so much that personally, I would sign Tchouameni, because I think him and Grav as the 6 pivot frees up Mac to go and do some stuff higher up the pitch. It allows him to rotate with, it just gives us a different element at the moment. Whereas at the when we're in a top game at the moment, it's Mac and Grav. We don't have really any other option. CJ is, I don't get it wrong, I'm not knocking CJ at all. He's coming to a run of form, but there's an argument he should play in front as it's a centre dominance. Do you know what I mean? So I think we have 4 good players, but in terms of if you want to go in a top game against a City or Real Madrid or whatever else, for me, I would prefer, and maybe that's just the way I am. I'm risk adverse in a lot of instances. Having a Tchouameni next to a Grav makes more sense to me than signing another Grav.
Yeah, those defensive numbers are stark, and here comes sort of the latest updates, people, a bit, because you may or may not have heard it. We did an interview. We had Paul Joyce on, kindly gave up some of his time yesterday. And as we do, like with the transfer show, asked around Bart's and sort of harangued as we do to try and get information. As we had, Zubimendi, he never signed that contract with Sociedad, did he? That everyone suspected he would. So he'll still have that short period left in the summer. We're not going to get into his whole release clause. Everyone knows about the 52 million and the dramas there. There is apparent still good contacts, shall we say. That was what we were informed and we said on the transfer show. Anything imminent for January? Not a thing. We'd be lying if we said that. Tchouameni, this is like, I'm going to disappoint you now, Bart, because we asked about this and Paul Joyce even said this. It almost feels like that meme it has when the little baby's praying and doing that. I feel it's a manifestation one, I'm afraid. Genuinely asking around, trying to get, no one seems to have anything on Tchouameni to Liverpool. The only thing, and please, as I'm saying this, people, this could be 2-2 and getting 27. Real Madrid, from getting that info, probably are looking at a sale because they lost a few concerts. They didn't get the NFL Europe, I think they were thinking of as well. There is also expectations, and we'll steer carefully on this, that free transfers could be coming onto their wage books, plural, possibly as well. So we'll steer carefully on that. So it may well be, the suggestion is a sale will be sanctioned. Now, as people know with Real Madrid, that's never one of their stars, is it? It then tends to be one of the ones who are the more fringe elements, even though they're big names. History's proven that, the way they've sold Özil, Schneider, all those types of players. And people like Tchouameni probably fall into that category. However, as I've probably laid it out for you there, people, that's a lot of hurdles to get through there. So as much as Bart's may want it, and to be fair, having seen this tonight, we can lay out a case, because the compliments, can you imagine away at the Emirates, something like that? Tchouameni and Grav in front of Van Dijk and Konate, that is as solid a base as you can get. We can finish this off in a nice way for this little bit. You still want Tchouameni, don't you, Bart?
No, I mean, I'm a realist. I think I do. If it was me, yeah, I do whatever I can. But if there's no option, there's no option. You know, it's one of those. What I would say, if there's an option to sign either, I'd sign one of them. Like I wouldn't want people. You know, if you can't sign Tchouameni, but you can get Zubimendi, yeah, I would do. Because I think if we do anything, and I don't think we will personally in January, I would buy a midfielder. I think we're one short in the rotation.
Yeah, and we said it there. It's come up on screen. Ryan Gravenberch has been sensational. The numbers in certain areas look good. There is a few bits, and we know this. Maybe it's the 4-2-4, the style. However people want to judge it, there are a few areas that could come. We are back, ladies and gents, with a huge apologies for our loss of sound. No idea what happened then. We could just absolutely make it up, but it is what it is on these live things at times. So where we were talking about Ryan Gravenberch, Bart, and it's important we set this because we were talking about him in terms of we looked at him against Tchouameni in the variants. We looked at him against Zubimendi in the variants. I suppose you and me are both of the ilk that we don't expect much business to be done, to be honest, in January.
Yeah,
I know the UP boys and yourself have mentioned it before. Is there a big risk that Ryan Gravenberch is now almost a key man reliance, i.e. he's playing every minute of every Premier League and Champions League game so far? As this ratchets up, I'm not even wanting to undersell this. He's going to decimate his career high minutes, isn't he, in a season? He's well on course to that. Is that a big fear or worry for you guys, especially in regards to the minutes, trying to rest him when we can, all those types of things?
I think we've mentioned on various pods. There's a couple of players who are looking to smash their career maxes by more than the recommended rate, and Ryan is definitely one of those. It also doesn't help the fact that he's come off the back of a season where he didn't play a lot with us, and another season with Bayern he didn't play a lot. So it's in terms of a 3-year where he's at. This is not only a big increase, it's more than that. It's a huge increase on the workload he was doing with the previous 2 seasons. So, there's some concerns in there, which is why I said before. I don't know whether viewers heard, but this midfield is the area that I would strengthen because it just allows you to rotate Ryan particularly. Now, whether that's you buy another 6 as we've spoken about, and that you can rotate Ryan out, or you buy a higher player and you can play CJ and Mac. It's just different horses for courses. Because clearly, I think we said in the pre-season, Endo's just not in the shape or form to get any substantial minutes going forward for slot. So and just to undermark, I mean, I said to you about Tchouameni and Zubimeni's EPB prevention in those games. Ryan, in the last game against Villa, he faced 8.5% of Villa's EPV, which is a lot. That's sort of third highest for an outfield player, and he stopped 99% of it. So he's become a pivotal part in our machine. Yes, there are things he's still not doing right, but he's an 8 trying to learn how to play a 6, and he's 14 games into that career. So is he exceeding everybody's thoughts on it? 100%. Are his minutes a worry? Yes. But again, if you look at the latest fatigue index, there's a guy, Ben, on, I think it is, with Sai, talking about how the new training regime can mitigate some of that, but there's still thresholds to where you should increase a player load going forward. And Ryan is on course to smash those thresholds. So, it's a concern. It's why I would target this area.
Yeah, people, it's why you probably think we'd be talking about a January signing, but just in case you missed it on the last one, we gave you the update that, having spoken to, obviously, I had Paul Joyce on the pod, various people. Don't want to lie to you, don't want to give false hope. And this doesn't mean that nothing will happen. I know that's a double negative, but all the indications are that we've had nothing that suggests anything's imminent on the horizon for a midfielder in January, I'm afraid. And The other part we wanted to look at tonight, Bart, left back. I mean, left back's an interesting one, and we'll talk a little bit more about Robbo, Tsimikas, the way that's sort of, I would say battled out, but unravelled maybe a little bit at times during the season. The two names I do want you to talk about and run us through the metrics as we do are that people might know these names. Kerkez, the left back, Milos Kerkez, Hungarian international at Bournemouth, came from AZ Alkmaar. And then the other one, almost a well-known name, it's fair to say, even though he's never played for us, but Ait-Nouri, as you know, the Wolves left back, who we'll talk about his contract as well. That's a name that it almost never goes away, Bart. So we might as well start with him, eh?
Yeah, I think we profiled him in the summer, and I actually think we came to the conclusion that he was a solid option. I think it was like a kind of his age profile and the rest. It was like, yeah, okay, I can see how that deal could be done, right? I think that's what we concluded with. Feel free to correct me. I'm not happy to know my memory at the time, but I think that's what we said. So I've rerun it. And to be honest with you, I was a little bit surprised about the regression in some of his, because you can look at that on screen there and straight away you can see the defensive part of that wagon wheel are nowhere near what we've just looked at for a defensive builder. Now, yes, a left back is going to be different, but he was in the 80th and 70th percentile when we looked at him in summer.
Yeah.
He's now in the 54th, 50th, and 55. He's in quite a low percentiles for blocks, for interceptions. Aerials is 28%, 28th percentile. That's incredibly low for a defender. And considering the volume of time that Wolves are defending at the moment, they're at the bottom of the league. They don't have the ball a lot. That would be a concern of mine, the regression. On ball, I think we've always said that's where I think he was more Robbo. I don't know, actually. Yeah, his carries are stronger than his passes. So, yeah, he's more Robbo than he is Costas. Costas is a better passer. Robbo is the drive up the field and carry the ball for distances. So his progressive carries are 77th percentile. That's good versus other fullbacks. Successful take-ons, 99th percentile, which basically says only 1% of fullbacks better than him in the last 365 days. Pass completion, 84%, again, good. His goal, he does have a goal threat. You know, he's in the 97th, 94th, 80th percentile plus for shots, total, non-penalty, and assists. So he has that element of his game, which is probably, if you look at his profile, it's probably done a bit of that. He was strong defensively in the summer and okay attacking wise, and now he's shrunk this bit and got a bit more in the attacking. If I show you the updated page for him that I will do. So this is a typical game. He faced a lower amount of the percentage teams EPV, but he only stopped 14% of it. So as a fullback, one of your first jobs is to stop the threat that the opposition are offering. He only stopped that 14% of the time. And you can look at his defenders around in there in the 80th, 64th. Yeah, I know Wolves are not having a great season, but that's really not. And this was against Southampton, by the way. We're not talking about a top side. Wow. So defensive actions in his area, the percentage of the team about 10%. So it's fairly balanced, but it's not a heat area for Wolves. It's more the right back area that has a heat area. So yeah, and XG and shot, nothing really to write home about apart from he actually appears in there. So yeah, there are. Whereas in the summer, I was very much like, okay, yeah, I could see that. Now I'm more towards the side of it would be a concern of mine to sign him. And if we go on to the lad at Bournemouth, is it Bournemouth?
Kerkez. Yeah.
Kerkez. Again, straight away, a better defensive kind of area of the wagon wheel. He's still not strong. I mean, his areas are still 25th percentile, which, considering the way we set up, set plays are a key king of the fight for the Premier League at the moment. Arsenal City are very, very good at that. It seems everybody's favourite thing at the moment to get a defensive set piece coach. So you would expect a better defensive performance there. Passing wise, he's not as good. He's in the 75th. There's nothing over 75 percentile here. And attacking wise, he's not as good. And if we just overlay that, if I've got that here, I don't think I have. Yes, I do. Overlay the two. Very similar profiles. So he carries the ball as well. So more of a Robbo than a Costas. And Ait-Nouri is better than him in almost all the profiles apart from tackles and blocks. So, yeah, not a big. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not blown away straight away with it.
Yeah.
If I look at my own stats pack with him, where are we on the list here? He only stopped 25% of the EPV one, so slightly better than Ait-Nouri, but not anywhere near probably where we want to be. Defensive actions again, he was in around about 5% in his kind of zones, 5-6%. Just because people might be thinking, how does that compare and the rest of it? And I'm like, okay, well, let's take Villa at the weekend, shall we? So Villa at the weekend, we played Robbo returned. He won 100% of the EPV against Villa.
Wow.
Who were a good side. Yeah. And if we look at where we are in terms of PPPDA, again, strong areas in Robbo's side of the pitch, right? So that's a good profile for him. And okay, you might be thinking, well, Costas has had a better season. A lot of people are saying that,
Yeah.
What did Costas do the last time out for us? Again, 80% of EPV run, and he was facing the champions of Germany. So in terms of their off-the-ball actions, and again here he's got about 10 to 15% defensive actions for Costas in that game against one of their better players. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But so two profiles of our current left backs playing better teams than Kerkez was doing. I think Kerkez was against City. I take that back a little bit, but still, they're not a profile. Yeah, it's not something I would particularly write home about. And just to really reiterate that for you, considering I've shown Robbo here because people are considering Robertson being the poorer of our two left backs at the moment. He's pretty much swamping Ait-Nouri's profile there. And if you want to match up with Kerkez, again, it's only the dribbles and blocks that Kerkez is doing better in. And Robbo is substantially better than him. Now, this is over 365 days, but I'd still, I'd be a little bit concerned if we was chopping out one of our fullbacks at this time in January, as we're talking about, for one of these two. Summer, maybe Kerkez is a youngster, isn't he? I think is he young? Yeah, could be, but the profile map there is some similarities, but right now in January, I'm not seeing a lot to like in the stats. If I'm being honest with you, though.
Yeah, it's almost in a good way. It's good to get the metrics as it always is, but it's almost disappointing when you break it down, because I think you look at, obviously, as we do as the transfer show, asking around Ait-Nouri. Now, people will say he's got a year left on his deal, but technically Wolves have the option of the club plus another one, so it's best to phrase it as 2 years. And there has even been suggestions that Liverpool are encouraging not to sign a new deal, maybe as a negotiation tactic. It is interesting, Bart, though, what you said, and I think you phrased it well. If you compare Ait-Nouri, who was solid defensively last season, and look at him now, he's got a few goals, but the defensive numbers are pretty stark, and they've moved completely the wrong way, realistically. We know Rules are struggling, and people will say he's playing well. People look at the defensive numbers. They were pretty worrying in certain aspects, especially if he was going to be a Liverpool fullback. And then, as you said with Kerkez, phrased it rightly, young potential, and he had a good, people looked at the assist he got against City and built him up. Those aerial numbers are low for a Liverpool fullback or defender. We know what slot likes, and we talked about that left back now has got to be good one-on-one defensively. But we're probably going to disappoint people, but we looked at those two left backs, and again, people, as we're saying this, there's nothing to suggest anything is imminent in January, but especially with the summer, I think most people will be surprised if a new left back doesn't arrive. The numbers weren't great to write home about, though, for both those players, were they, at the moment?
No, and there's another 20 odd games to go, so they could improve that. But right now, I don't think there's I certainly wouldn't, if I was an analyst for a club, I wouldn't be making a case for that unless there was something that they've got beyond the as I always say, these are public domain data that we analyse. If you get the camera system that are in the ground and you get some other more detailed vision, you might pick up things that we can't do in the public sphere, and that's fair. But from what I'm looking at right here, right now, I certainly wouldn't recommend signing over these in January. They'd have to have a substantial improvement in the latter part of the season to be considered, because as much as people rightly, I think, have actually picked out Robbo as being a bit of a weakness in some of our games, he's still a very good Premier League fullback. Yeah. Is he a Liverpool fullback anymore? Is the question. If someone's going for the title, but he is he's still a Premier League quality fullback, and he's still captain for Scotland. So he's not. Yes, he's declining, but I don't think he's declined that much that we would take a punt on one of these to replace him with, personally, from looking at the figures. And Costas, I think we chatted about 2-3 pods ago on UP. Their profiles in terms of Costas, and they were kind of Robbo was up here, and as Robbo's declined, I think Costas has come up a little bit and then crossed over a little bit. And he's not that much better than Robbo, but I just think they've crossed over in terms of their abilities at that moment. And I think Costas on ball ability at the moment is more what Slot wants. And if you look at the combos that are playing, the way Costas links with Cody typically works really well. The Palace away goal, for example, where Costas comes in field, inverts, plays a simple vertical pass into Cody, who pulls it across the back. Jota scores 1-0, and we're on our way. Now, that is not the kind of ability that Robbo has shown. Costas, they've both had frailties at the back recently. Arsenal away for Robbo. The Brighton at home for Costas, he backs off rather than go and press the ball. So they're both not perfect defensively, but I think the thing with Costas at the moment is he holds the line a little bit better. Robbo's always had that thing of playing everybody on side, and so I think that's for me right now. A long-winded way of saying it, I would stick with what we've got at the moment.
Yeah, which, to be fair, when we've looked at the evidence, people, and as we do digging around in bits on the transfer show, Liverpool are aware of Kerkez. That was the information we had, but suggestions that a price tag was somewhere around £50 million. That seems exuberant, doesn't it, based on what we're seeing here? Yeah.
50 million for, I would suggest you could profile better left backs for £50 million.
And there we go, ladies and gents. So just in case you missed any of it, we like Tchouameni. There isn't really any links. He is the ultimate destroyer. His pass completion's high. It's not that progressive. He gives it simple, but him with Ryan Gravenberch gives you a complete profile. We looked at Zubimendi as well. Very similar in some aspects. Not the exact same player as Ryan Gravenberch. Very much metronome, keeps the play going. Maybe the defensive side and the legs could be a question. If only you could merge Zubimendi and Gravenberch into one player and throw Tchouameni in there, but they probably cost about 150 million. So that was that. And left backs, I think the phrase, as they call it, people, a busted flush. You look at Ait-Nouri, and yes, he's got a few goals. The defensive stats are definitely nothing to write home about. And there's a few concerns there. Kerkez, why he's got pace and different attributes. Aerial was a concern, 25th percentile, as Bart's pointed out. The defensive numbers aren't really there. And for suggestions of 50 million quid, it's really, really hard to see it. And probably this feels a good one to finish on. But we are doing so well. We are 5 points clear. We have got a perfect record in the Champions League. History, smart business tells you, always reinforce from the position of strength. And Liverpool looked in the summer. We know, we heard the word opportunistic a million times, but they were looking. They didn't get Zubimendi. It would make all the sense in the world to get one more in. But we're not really fancying it in January, aren't we? That's what our gut's telling us.
I think you're spot on there. I mean, I think you and I have both been at this rodeo before. It's there's been opportunities before when we've been top of the league at the turn of the year, and literally, I strongly believe a signing here or there would have got us over the line in the latter part of May, and the club decided not to. You've got to remember they are fundamentally venture capitalists. So they will weigh things up in terms of that investment. And I think we were saying before we went live, I don't want our performance to drop off. But the bigger that league gets, if it gets bigger, touch wood it does. I'd love to be sitting here in a few weeks' time and it's a bigger league. The less likely we're going to sign someone.
Yeah.
Because they, from a purely financial point of view, they're going to say, why am I going to give you £15 million when you're this far ahead?
Yeah.
And your new Fathom training mechanisms, which that's not me discrediting it. I'm just saying he's come in. Part of the reason they brought him in was his ability to keep players fitter for longer and the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly another reason why they will say, well, you've said you can do that. You've got this. We back you to see that through to the end of the season. So, yeah, I think whilst we're in this reign of form, it's brilliant. It really, really is. But knowing and just seeing the runes and the way things pick about, FSG operate in a different way. And I don't think they're not fans like us. I'm not saying they're not fans, but they're not fans like us. And I think they'll look at it still from a very financial point of view and say, you know what, that's not worth the investment right now.
Well, if John and Tom are watching, hopefully we sold them on one of Tchouameni or Zubimendi, even though one sounds like a manifestation at the moment. But we will have to see. And ladies and gents, we are at the end of this episode of Transfer Market Metrics. Feel free to like or subscribe, throw some comments on the chat panel as you read it or you watch it, wherever it may be. All it leaves me to say is for the data, for the analysis, and for the time, Bart, thank you as ever, mate.
No problem. You're welcome.
And ladies and gents, that was another Transfer Market Metrics for Anfield Index.